Hi, I'm Daniel. I have sort of missed doing season by season videos of shows, and it's good to return to one of my favourite shows that recently got a new season last year. That is The Amazing World of Gumball. I did several episode discussions before, but didn't do this because Cartoon Network shows aren't as convenient to watch with other networks, easy on services. HBO Max self-destructed animated content before it could even get to the UK. The first two seasons being put on Netflix did make it easier to watch on TV, and also made me think to start ranking every episode of the season as a video I was interested in making. The Amazing World of Gumball is such a great kids show, with very smart writing that's very funny, with such a strong set of main and side characters. The development of its sense of comedy and Elmore across the show goes to many great places. Season 1 itself is quite a lot weaker, with more resembling the average kids show, and having quite a bit of alien storm awareness plaguing it, alongside a weaker set of episodes. I personally don't understand those who think the show went downhill, as this is the weakest season. Maybe if you split up the first half of the recent season it might be close, but still. Still, this season is still far from bad, and not a stain on the show's run like some other weaker seasons are. There's a lot more great episodes than I thought, making up a lot of this list. The comedy is often still on point, and some of the more serious episodes land. The worst episodes aren't awful either, but there's still a good night I don't care for much. On that note, what do I find the worst and best episodes of Gumball Season 1? 36, The Robot. This felt like a given bottom spot for my memory of it, but I wonder if maybe my opinions and criteria for viewing has changed since. I'm past criticising logic in a show like this, so I don't think everyone really think Boruto's Gumball is a problem. With that said, this episode just isn't funny and felt far too mean-spirited. It's not enjoyable seeing Gumball's IP historian, and especially from Boba, a character I normally like. This also just shoves starting a boring battle sequence and then it just ends. A lot of the episodes this season don't have a full story with something to gain from. This in particular is just not a good watch. It's very funny and has to drag on quite a bit to reach every minute, so it's the worst episode of the season. 35, The Picnic. 11-minute episodes get paired up in twos to be referred to as sister episodes, and this can often be annoying when an episode is bad and you have to skip past it. However, this is an extremely rare case of the two worst episodes of the season being paired together. This involves Gumball and Darwin getting lost in the woods, and it's so boring seeing them start to argue with little actually happening in the whole episode. I don't have that much to say about this one other than just how bland it is. The repeated line avoid the forest of doom is kind of funny, but that was it. 34, The Dress. I can't disagree with the negative reception this has. Its aim for awful comedy sort of works, but it's not that entertaining to watch. It's funny how Gumball doesn't hide his voice or anything about everyone but Anais is too stupid to notice. And the song is good. I'm just very tired of the trope of having someone fall in love during a cross-checking episode. With Darwin getting quite creepy here, also how the story is resolved doesn't really accomplish much. It's not a good episode. 33, The Kiss. This episode is more forgettable than anything, with all these visions Gumball sees after getting tiring quickly. This trial near the end is a bit creative, and the whole running gag with Annie trying to move the suitcase up is very funny. But this is just quite a bland episode with a plot. It's better than Grandma's Kisses from SpongeBob at least. 32, The Laziest. I don't like this more mean-spirited characterization of Richard, especially when he doesn't receive any karma and wins at the end. This is an interesting plot, and the whole montage ruining Yari's life feels very disconnected segment from the rest of the episode, and not funny enough to justify it. This episode deserves some points for some actually good comedy, and getting high energy out of a lazy competition. It's just not satisfying and one of the season's weakest. 31, The Microwave. Another not good episode, but at least the more inventive premise with this microwave Java gross things turning into a child they need to raise. There's some funny jokes about parenting a troubled child, like Darwin's attempt at child abandonment, but with the monster movie parody twist that it's evil and consumes people. I like how it escalates, but this isn't that funny, and the gross out is far too much for my liking. 30, The Pressure. I wonder if yes he was always gay, or was originally much gender neutral depending on episode, by the fact he's in the girl's treehouse here and also lies about having a boyfriend. Anyway, this kinda comes off on the more basic cartoon episodes, with how it categorizes boys and girls. The awful comedy is accomplished well, but it's not the most enjoyable to watch, with it all getting to an end that barely concludes the plot. Something I find weird is that many hate the 8th episode The Girlfriend for similar reasons, but not only do I find that more funny with satire, Darwin being uncomfortable wasn't the focus there as it is here. That also had a better ending. I didn't get how many took seriously, but that's if I get to season 4. The Pressure isn't a bad episode, but never one I enjoy coming back to. 29, The Date. It's hard not to notice that most of the aviation involved episodes are near the bottom this season. While that's not uncommon for my preferences, I find Gumball vastly improved upon them in later seasons once they got past the awkwardness of them. This spends too long before the date with each Waterson, and they're just mostly awkward with the pet funeral. Parts of this story are kinda clever, and I like that spider ending, but this is a pretty mixed episode overall. 28, The Ghost. We are almost on the good episodes, with me liking the plot here of Carrie possessing Gumball for food, and these crazy ghost montages that come from that. There's funny moments here with a different words and advice from saying no, and the message about it is good, but this gets repetitive. I also just don't like a Carrie here, especially when you don't need to stretch to figure out what this is alluding to. I don't like the implication of the episode, given what happens with Carrie later in the series. 27, The Third. This is the first episode. Sometimes it's a DVD, which is better at that than this. It's weird to start with them being world of each other, and the very similar plot was handled far better in the season 6 episode The Science. This is still funny in a solid average cartoon way. There's a lot of alien storm and weirdness, especially Iron's whole character here. This isn't much from a plot standpoint. They need a third and Tobias becomes that, then they split up before reuniting. There's no answer or even bringing up the conflict of them getting bored of each other, it just ends. 26, The Media. Now I can call the episodes from this point pretty good, with this having a strong conflict of parental meddling, with Nicole attacking a young Gumball's life being funny. I like Darwin hurting by smiling too much, and Gumball's insecurities before cheerleading. They are very funny jokes. It is a bit yes on the story point, and some scenes could be more funny, but it works and worth doing. 25, The Prank. One of the season's more forgettable episodes, at least from my memory, but still quite funny with the escalation of a prank war. Unlike the Asius, both sides getting likeable, with Richard starting it, but Gumball and Darwin taking it too far, so it's more fun to watch unfold. Richard going crazy at dinner, especially a highlight, with the bit of hyperventilating, and them pretending to be TV with the "We Are In a Music" video. It's weird that Nicole said she'll intervene but doesn't, but I sort of prefer this conflict without her and Annalise being too reasonable about it. 24, The Secret. Yes, I've seen The Secret Box too, and a similar ending joke was far more funny there, whereas Patrick was a more mysterious character to do it with. This is still a funny set of gags asking for something, and it's easy to relate to wanting to know something desperately. The argument they have to travel through the sewers was also a very creative and funny sequence in a good episode. 23, The Curse. Having an unlucky thing keep happening yet a bit repetitive, but it's still a funny episode, with me liking how it tackled yuck as a concept, with Anais doubting it, and being more science-based. The theory of why it has that is pretty interesting, and it used a very wacky chase scene as an overall solid episode. 22, The Ape. I like this mysterious episode, and how it's all framed. The jokes around her sadness that no one likes her are quite funny, and I like how I don't know if this change is performative or not. I like this friendship with the family and Nicole's grudge. This really treats you say like the worst word ever. The car chase camera is also intense and quite funny. This doesn't yan them reach their potential as a complete story, but there's good comedy found in how it's reversed an expected ending. 21, The Mustache. This episode features the great song Number Because We're Men, and it's mostly a typical kids become adults episode. It's a strong use of this premise, where we really liking the voices they do, and the extent of manly they become. This has a very regular show-like essence, with this duo in an apartment, and it's a very funny episode, particularly them firing each other and the whole ending. 20, The Painting. I used to dislike this episode, and think it was one of the season's worst, but as you can tell by the ranking, I majorly changed my judgment on that. While it's true this whole concept could so easily be avoided by us listening to Anais, that feels like the point how you don't listen to her and make a judgment based on her painting. Even so, what comes from all these stories is funny and worth it. Mr. Small's cast scenes are so funny, especially if this is not our bit. I also like Richard struggling to even enter a job, and Nicole panicking trying to react and do nothing. I would prefer each was played in full rather than cut between, and Annie's being absent takes away from the ending, but it's still a nice thought to close a great comedic episode. 19. The end. I really like the presentation leading up to the story, feeling like the end of the world is approaching as all these signs and them not being bothered. The time that keeps popping up gives a very intense feel, and there's just a lot of great jokes here, but it does start to go downhill in the second half, with this not feeling like it needs from a Watson family one. Also, why was this the second last episode of the season instead of the last? It's called The End, that would have made perfect sense to be a last episode. 18. The Goons. We're now on the up half of the ranking, and while the episodes aren't quite great yet, they are getting there. I understand why many won't like an episode about being dumb, but they most just like these dumb antics. This episode somehow successfully makes competition with parental love not go unlikable or mean-spirited. I like seeing Annalise have fun and embrace her childish side, as well as this whole dumb race being packed with so much gags from the entire supporting cast. There's some weaker bits, but see why this used to be one of my favourites. 17. The Fight. This episode is underrated and a lot funnier than I remember. Even as another structure, Gumball spending time with each family member. That was usually off this season. The power against Annie's head is a highlight, and I just like certain jokes like Richard suddenly showing up at Elmore. The training montages are fun, and that chasing is really well done in how it's all shot and put together. While not that complicated story-wise, I like the misunderstanding with Tina not meaning to be a boy. Also Nicole sorting things out in the background. That off-screen battle must have been legendary. 16. The Poltergeist. This episode has a yarn common with Begonia if the kidnapping execution was in a separate subplot to the conspiracy theories. Anyway, Mr. Robinson is such a big character, while all his episodes are like the Van Kai for me. The way it explores the missing spark in a marriage through their arguing but still taken seriously is really good. The different things going down do to try and make happier and Richard's ghost thing is quite funny, even if this isn't one of Miss Robinson's best episodes. 15. The DVD. This is sometimes the first episode, and far better than the third at start, although it's also sometimes the season finale for some reason. A good premise with them not being able to return a DVD, with them either having to face the consequences of their actions and tell mom, or get more schemes. It's funny seeing Diamond constantly repeat that, but it was his fault the DVD was destroyed in the first place. The highlight of the episode is easily the idea to a train thing they film. It's just so funny a bit. Don't have much more to say other than it's a really sorry cartoon episode. 14. The Party. Really fun episode of a house party where they need dates to get in. Although Darwin doesn't and is yelled in for some reason. Miss Simeon and Principal Brown crashing the party is very funny. And the relationship drama is actually pretty good here, establishing Gumball and Penny's relationship well. I like the character's entire existence got erased, and the way Darwin fixes everything that destroys and helps out. While this feels different to what I consider a Gumball episode, it's really good at what it is. 13. The Quest. I'm surprised he didn't just get Nicole involved, but that happened later this season in the fight. And I really like the sibling relationship here, and I use this dynamic with Gumball and sort of Darwin. It's often funny like that cute face off, but also exciting seeing this mission to get Daisy from Tina. It's also quite heartfelt. It's yes funny, but still a great episode. 12. The Wand. It's just wholesome seeing all Gumball and Darwin do to help Richard and protect their childhood trauma. This feels like where the more youthful and sentimental element of Richard's character was starting to be better defined, even if he's still very dumb and goes too far as the power goes to his head. I also love the cartoon logic here of how much Gumball and Darwin can do to make each wish come true. It's just a funny episode that also has some Mr. Robinson screen time. Speaking of him, Ivan, the Debt. This is a funny parody of the episode, with how exaggerated it is with Gumball's life not being saved, and him making things worse trying to save his. I like how he's introduced the random session Gumball has with his neighbour. That just comes across far more served than the rest of season 1 by this type of comedy and plot. Mr. Robinson plays off Gumball comedically very well, and his big song number I Want to Be Free goes so hard. While Gumball isn't a show I first think of for the songs, I imagine it would be hard if I ever tried to make a best Gumball songs video. It's also funny how Rocky's reaction of That's My Dad is basically the reverse of what happens in Illumination Sing. Anyway, a very funny and great episode. 10. The Mystery. These flashback and interrogation film mysteries are just a very fun format every time they're used, With hearing about all these possible suspects, the first half of the interactions and stories in this room is just so amazing. Gumball was a very fun, energetic character to lead this conversation, and Darwin's false confession is so funny. There's also a good chase scene, and I like the steady reveal around what happened. Barbara being in the background is a nice hint to pick up from, as well as all the alibis being connected to the actual solution. The actual ending comes out a bit weak, but it's still such a great episode. 9. The Car. The best of this season's Mr. Worms episodes that I kept forgetting about despite it being really great. The first half was already fun, exploring the admiration of and doing everything for him with cartoon logic speed. The second half, finding out more layers of who destroyed the car as a family effort, is funny and told in an interesting way. I like how jokes up for Rich and Nicole and Annalise come back, and the funny way his neighbour conflict is presented by the end. For this to be ninth, it means this season must have a lot of amazing episodes. 8. The Club. This is such a great structure to show every character through their different clubs, and it's so filled with so many funny gags, like the reserve football team and Gumball's Killer Gumball. This highlighted your season 1 Gumball's strengths, both the show's writing and the character being so likeable and rootable here. I also like the family team up and the way that different skills used to stop the reject club and upload that video. It makes a fun climax to a really well-rounded and great episode. 7. The Responsible. The writing on this episode is such a comedic powerhouse, coming from Gumball and Down Babies and Annalise. The frantic worrying about commercial on TV, paper cuts, and that 70% of stair accidents happen on stairs lead to several memorable cultural moments, especially Miss Simeon shouting, "You get F minus in parenting." This stands out with early episode, but the dynamics are so fun here across both plots. It's just a really funny showcase on the chaos and bond of the family, especially on how it ends in a blame chain that lands on people blaming the internet instead. 6. The Genius. I know I just mentioned the internet, but it's weird seeing what will become a very online show, have Gumball not knowing about the internet in this episode. Anyway, this is one highlight of the season, with a good plot around the high test score meaning government tests being put on someone, and Gumball pushing himself to become smarter and join Darwin. It's funny to see him so out of pace in this field, but also it's very easy to root for. I really like how his brain is sentient and characterized, and finding that never returning makes this episode feel more unique with that. The subplot with Rocky is a bit weaker, but effective in showing the family's madness about Darwin. I like the Annalise reveal and the ending moment for Gumball's reign. This just progresses very well with a story that's great and it's also very funny. 5. The G. This episode can be really funny watching them take up karate by just wearing these suits, but also has a strong message to it. The way it shows more deceptive mocking rather than outright bullying, and how Nicole is the one to learn something is very interesting. I like how these parts should be accepted, and now will matter to the right people. The repeated motif of Penny also saying it is dealing with being himself really works, and the parental role Nicole goes through is handled very well. This has a strong narrative arc alongside the comedy, and 2 good songs instead of 1. I used to think it was the best dramatic episode of the season, but now I think it's the second. 4. The Refund. This is just one of the best uses of a character repeating and trying to get something, with this funny set of schemes to get a refund. Yave is the perfect foil to the cartoon logic of Gumball and Darwin. The hypnosis bit and the refund the world video that actually makes him sad are just great bits. The climax having Richard get involved to demand the refund, and having the manager come out to fight him, SCA's the conflict in a natural but exciting way. When it wants to be, the comedy writing of the show is just off the charts in this, and also why ranked in the top 2. 3. The Helmet. This episode isn't ranked so high for the same reason as the rest of the top 4. This isn't as comedic an episode, but it still has some good jokes. But it's mainly so spectacular for the great atmosphere that makes it stand out from the rest of the season. This is a dark presentation on addiction through this helmet that brings yuck that starts to tear his family apart. The need they feel to have this helmet to bring yuck is shown a lot, especially how Nicole was about to the job anyway without the real helmet. This story just goes in an interesting way, with that whole climax of Darwin and Eve trying to destroy it, and Gumball being against them. The clear part of this episode is especially strong, with that fiery red drawing the night. The helmet just feels like the season point everything it can to making this episode so intense and amazing. 2. The Spoon. I don't know how I can explain how funny He's Got a Spoon was and still is. You just get it or you don't. This might have to be the funniest episode of season 1. I like the plot set up of Richard not having a present for Nicole and needing to watch the kids, but Gumball and Darwin don't need to watch the kids, so he sends them to get something. This episode is such a great example of how to write stupid characters who still follow their own logic. This burger yanked gun one Darwin while kicking for shouting old people, and then thinking what old people want, and they think everything except for wigs, but shampoo perfect for old people. Just writing about it makes me want to rewatch scenes from this episode and quote more jokes. The chaos that the sentiment is funny with that chase across the store. I like how it's given Nicole a moment to stand up for her kids at the end, and I also like how much this fish she gets out of the store as a setting. Maybe a solely dumb comedic episode is ranked too high, but it is just so peak at being that. 1. The sock. I already made videos on this episode, but I'm not sure it holds up, and I doubt many watching this will have seen my 2021 videos, so I'll review from scratch. This is such a Kevin commentary on how Yang is taught inconsistent ways that aren't properly explained, and then punishes you for not getting something like you're supposed to. I don't know if I've ever seen an autistic child portrayed in a more accurate way, whether intentionally or not. And it's also done in such a funny way. Mr. Small really shines here with all his methods, like the honesty burr rap, before bringing out the silence make to avoid attempting to explain anything complicated. The instant calm he gets from doing that is funny, if a bit cruel. The structure that keeps going back to his office leaves room for so many great jokes, like the principal Brown hair and fire exchange, and the whole climax. Both Brown and Simeon interpreting their miming as Miss Simeon trapped in the old abandoned well, and Rocky completely understanding what they're saying, but then proceeding to throw himself out the window randomly just to repeat the running gag. I could just list more jokes at an extremely funny and clever episode that's a masterpiece. This is why I think The Stock is the best Gunway episode of season 1, and just one of the show's best in general. In conclusion, The Amazing World of Gumball still are all great memorable episodes, even in its weaker form. I really like talking about the show, and want to do a season 2, and maybe the rest of the show too. I did have to pause production of this video partway through, but I think I'll have more time to do occasional videos across the summer. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I made some individual Gunway episode reviews if you want to get a bit of a tease of what will be near the top of the later seasons before I can get to them. The end.